Hello, viewers of Bloodbowl. I am Frederick Von Smilson, and I hope you've been enjoying this super exciting match between the Nurgle Rotters and the Dwarf Giants. The showdown of the century as Dwarven Fortitude faces off against Nurglite Pestilence. Now, due to the fact that the halftime show is going to be a tad bit delayed because of the extensive cleanup necessary after Norgrid Blistergut's rather impressive gastrointestinal explosion, I have been given the daunting but satisfying task of keeping your attention. So tonight, I'm going to give all of you watching a history lesson. Now before you check out in disgust at the thought of being educated, I should tell you, this won't be your average class. Because viewers, tonight, I will give you a full history of the greatest sport in the old world, Blood Bowl. So our story begins on a distant battlefield oh so long ago, where something that most people would have thought impossible occurred. A truce. A truce between dwarves and orcs. During that day, a battle had occurred that was so brutal and fierce that even their ancient hatred wasn't enough to keep them going, and both sides agreed to stop fighting, at least momentarily. With that time, they would lick their wounds, try and most likely fail to negotiate, and probably get back to fighting soon after. Now I know what you're thinking, Blood Bowl viewers. Orcs and dwarves of the old world agreeing to a truce? That's impossible, Frederick, and you must be lying. And normally, you would be right. But as my father once told me, son, if you spend your time worrying about little things like lore consistency, you'll miss the fun things in life. Like various races on a square field beating the crap out of each other. And Sigmar, bless his soul, he was right. Now on this battlefield, there was an orc by the name of Monks. Now Monks was your typical orc boy, easily bored, easily distracted, and easily stupid. With no fight to get into, and nothing to grab his attention, he mostly just lazily hung around, trying to nap while his back was up against a strange metal dome. One of many ancient ruins of past civilizations people can find all across our world. Feeling a rumble in his tummy, Monk started digging into the ground, looking for a grub to munch on. It was during this search that his fingers found strange purchase on a piece of metal. After some more digging, his brutish hand seemed to press some ancient switch, and activated a strange device. A device that produced a worrying combination of sounds like clicks and the movement of gears. After a few moments, the strange dome that Monks was trying to nap on began to open. And inside was a wide open hall. Lining its walls were several examples of a strange form of armor with numbers on them. And in the center was a large book. Wondering what the heck was going on, the leaders that were fruitlessly negotiating went to investigate, themselves also becoming surprised by this bizarre sight. With those present unable to read the strange language in a book, a call was sent out far and wide for anyone capable of doing so. Eventually, an old wizened dwarf was found, and after 3 days of study, he was able to translate it. I believe we have a recording of that sacred day. This book appears to be the religious text of a group of warriors who come from a land called Amorica. The book is dedicated to the lost god, Knuffle. The head priests of the various sects of this deity, known as coaches, led their bands of warriors into great arenas and attempted to exterminate each other. The object was not, however, violence for violence sake. No, it was in truth of great ritual significance. A pig's bladder was inflated and carried or thrown from one end of the arena to the other, in an effort to score. Carrying the bladder over an opponent's end line gave a sect a number of things called points. The battle lasted a set time. At the end, the sect that had amassed the most points was declared the victor. Apparently, you didn't even have to maim all your opponents, although the coaches seem to have encouraged this practice. Furthermore, the book also states Knuffle's sacred number was, 11, and that only 11 warriors from each side could be on the field of battle at one time. This does not mean there are only 11 members of a sect, or a team, as they are also known. Warriors can go off and come on at will, as long as the sacred number was not exceeded. One could also hit an opponent at any time, as long as one did not use a weapon. Knuffle said that one's body was one's weapon, and although he allowed armor, all weapons were forbidden from the arena. It was also written that the arena for this conflict was a rectangular field set within a huge bowl. It seems to me that Knuffle has seen our dilemma and is trying to resolve it. I suggest that a team is put forward from each side, and that our differences be resolved in this fashion. And play they did, having the first game of what would later be known as Bloodbowl. No one at the time really knew all the rules, and the number 11 was a problem since most of the people playing couldn't count that high. But there was a game played, and there was plenty of carnage, so everyone that survived left that game pretty satisfied. It was only later, as more digging was done, that a green field with markings were discovered, as well as ancient pamphlets and books further explaining the game. The old wizened dwarf, who renamed himself Roselle in honor of an ancient sage that was described in the text, made himself the first sacred commissioner. Working with a team of seers and scribes, he began the process of recreating the ancient rites of Knuffle's game and dispersing them to the world. The group gathering these sacred rules, eventually calling themselves the National Amorical Football Association, or NAF for short. Initially, there were a few issues as each team had their own versions of the rules, which of course were always advantageous to whichever team had created them. But eventually, NAF enforced a rulebook with a set of guidelines that needed to be followed. And with the introduction of Budweiser beer as their sponsor, Blood Bowl soon became a worldwide phenomenon. Which reminds me, I want to thank Budweiser Beer for sponsoring this pre-halftime show. Remember viewers, Budweiser Beer, the only blood you need.
Warning, not actually blood. Not responsible for any vampires who expire upon consumption.
Roselle was eventually succeeded by Jim Thrope, who was then succeeded by the infamous George Hellhound. Now George realized that although the stadiums for most Blood Bowl matches were huge, they filled to capacity rather quickly, which meant there were plenty of people who weren't giving his organization their money to watch their games. And not getting more money was a problem he needed to solve. Working with various guilds of magic, they developed something that would change Blood Bowl forever, the camera. A bound spirit was put into a box and forced to look at one point, and what it saw was transmitted to a group of magicians using a powerful spell called Cabal Vision. And those images could be sent to any human, dwarf, elf, halfling, or any other race across the world, as long as they pay the perfectly reasonable fee, of course. With the success of the camera, rights to transmit the game were sold to various casting services, such as Channel 7, the Necromancer's Broadcasting Circle, Crystal Bell Service, and the Association of Broadcasting Conjurers. And for a while, viewers, things were good. There were over 20 major teams, and NAF games were highly organized and regulated. Mostly. It seemed like the good times would never end, and NAF-run Blood Bowl games would be a staple of life for decades to come. Sadly, one person decided to ruin that fantasy. You see, Blood Bowl was maybe a little too successful, at least for one greedy individual. No one knows how he did it, but during a match between the Darkside Cowboys and the Reichland Reavers, Nicky Threehorn, the then commissioner of NAF, took every ounce of treasure from the treasure vaults and the Darkside Cowboy cheerleaders, and fled, never to be seen again. Although there are rumors of a hidden fastness deep in the mountains, where vast parties and dirty goings-on continue even now. And if it's true, it makes me extremely annoyed I have not yet been invited. After that great betrayal, the situation was made even worse by a continuing line of corrupt and incompetent commissioners, until finally, NAF collapsed completely. For a while, the fate of Bloodbowl was in the air. Many coaches tried to make their own way, but found themselves going bankrupt fairly quickly. It seemed that yelling at accountants the same way you yell at your player somehow did not gain one financial success. It soon became obvious that Bloodbowl, as popular as it was, may soon become as much of a memory as the old ones. In desperation, the Necromancer Broadcasting Channel put up the money to host the first Chaos Cup. It was an open tournament, with the first 3 weeks being something called playoffs, with all the teams choosing matches between themselves. By the end of those 3 weeks, the 4 teams with the most points headed off to the semifinals, and from there, the grand finals, with the victorious team winning the Chaos Cup trophy. The Chaos Cup was a massive success, and viewership went through the roof. Soon other organizations scrambled to have their own tournaments, until eventually, 4 tournaments established themselves as the go-to for any Blood Bowl match, soon known collectively as the Majors. Which leads us to now, faithful viewers. Blood Bowl in the time of the Majors is very different from the highly organized games of the NAF past. Teams are more like traveling bands, traveling from town to town and playing in their stadiums, with the town footing the bill in return for a bloody game and high concession prices. As for the game itself, it's the same as ever. 2 teams facing off in bloody combat, a referee trying to simply stay alive, a cheering crowd, gymnastic cheerleaders, rampant breaking of the rules, and bribery. Wholesome family entertainment loved the world over. Well, viewers, I hope you enjoyed listening to this brief history of Blood Bowl as much as I enjoyed telling it, because it looks like I finished just in time. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present your halftime show, the Slaneshi Sirens with special guest Sigvald on guitar. Don't look too long into his eyes, ladies and gentlemen, because he will steal your heart and your soul. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on Blood Bowl as much as I enjoyed making it. And yes, it may be a surprise to some of you that this game actually has lore behind it, and it is utterly ridiculous and I love it. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, comment, press the little bell so you know when I post, etc., so the YouTube algorithm knows I kind of exist and more working out there, and I can have a chance to make more of these stories I love. But if you really like it, and you have the cash, and you're inclined, please send a little money over to my Ko-fi or my Patreon account. The extra money gives me the time I need to work on these stories I love. Anyway, thanks for listening/watching, and see you next time.